Alrighty folks, we're going to set up Baserow. This is the Airtable replacement. This process will work if you're using a DigitalOcean or if you're doing it locally, which I'm going to be doing today. Now this is on Windows. I'm going to assume the process is going to be the same for Mac, but I don't really have much experience with Mac machines, so I can't really be much help there. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to run through the Docker setting up. So you're going to need Docker installed naturally. If you're running this locally, you've probably already got that set up. I've got Docker here, Docker for desktop, and then I've got a n8n instance already set up here. So I'll go through the command to get Baserow up and running. Then we'll head into Baserow. I'll give you a quick overview of that, and then we'll head into n8n and I'll show you how to connect that up so you can update tables, get tables, and we'll even create a funky little AI agent that can also interact with your Baserow as well. Cool. So this is the Docker command. Now I've broken this up here. I will ultimately put this all on one line and copy and paste it, but I just want to explain what's actually going on here. So we've got the Docker run. This is -D for daemon or detached mode. The name of the container, so in this instance I call it Baserow-temp. You can name this whatever you want. We've got an environmental parameter here. Now this is going to be the Baserow URL that you're going to access this. Now because I'm running this locally, in order for Docker containers to communicate with each other, on my local machine at least, we need to use the Docker's internal host name. Now you can use localhost and stuff, but you have to do some host file stuff to make that work. The easiest thing is to just put host.docker.internal, and then in this instance I've set the port to be 86. So that's super important that you set that like that. If you're on DigitalOcean or something like that, then you will just set the IP here. That'll absolutely be fine. We've got the volume here, so this is where all the Baserow data is going to be stored. In my case, I've got it at C Docker Baserow Baserow-data-temp. The next part is the port. So typically, if you go on a Baserow website and look at their installation docs, this will say 8080, right? But if you've got other things that are running on port 80, this is going to cause a bit of an issue. I like to change this, so I'm going to change this to 86. This first part here can be whatever you want. The second part is kind of like Docker's internal port. So you can have multiple things running on this port 80, but not on the kind of the port that you actually access it from. Sounds super confusing, I know. I'm sorry if I just did a bodge job of explaining that. If you've not got anything running on port 80, then you can put port 80 here, right? It doesn't really matter. You put whatever port you want. Just make sure that this internal address also has that same port number that you've got here. That's the only thing. The next command is just to restart. So if you restart Docker, this is basically saying for it to automatically start up, right? Don't really need to worry too much about this command. And then we've got the actual image that we're going to pull. So that's it with that Docker command. I'm going to put all this onto one line. So I'm just putting this all in one line. So I'm going to put this whole command in the description, of course, and you can just tweak it for your needs. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to come over to Docker here, and I'm just going to paste that in. I'm going to click enter. Now this is going to initially pull the image. So depending on your internet, this could take a minute or two. Okay, great. So that's pulled the image, extracted it, and it's deployed it. Now if we just select Baserow-temp here, now it's going to do even though the container's running, it's still got to do a bunch of setup stuff. Now this is going to take a couple of minutes depending on your machine, so be patient with that. Once it's done, it will give you a URL, and there you go, that is complete. See, we've got a URL here. Now it is still going to do a bunch of other stuff. Baserow comes with a bunch of templates that you can use, so it's going to go ahead and kind of download all of them and set them up, but you'll still be able to access this URL for now. So I'm going to go select this, and then we'll do the whole sign up process and go through that. So this will be the first screen that you come to when you go to your browser. You click the link from the Docker, You go to host.docker.internal and then the port number 86. The first thing it's going to want you to do is create an account. This is going to be the first account. It's going to be the admin account. So I'm just going to put ben@gmail. This isn't a real email address. You put whatever you want here. I'm going to put Ben, and then for the password, I'm just going to put in a password. And then I'm going to click Get Started. Now this is going to want you to do some onboarding stuff. I'm just going to skip this. I don't want help setting up, so I'm just going to select that. There we go. Your Baserow is all set up. Now by default, it's going to give you this database. In my case, it's called Ben's Company. And it's going to put some dummy data in there. Alright, not really too interested in that. What I am going to do is create a new database and import some dummy data, because we'll play with that in n8n shortly. So I'm going to add new database, and there's a bunch of stuff you can do with this. Once you're at this point, have a play with this, explore everything that it can do. It's super powerful, and it's free. Now there is some limitations, right? There's things that are locked behind a paywall. For me, that's not an issue. I'm not really interested in these things. I'm not using these at the moment, so the free version is absolutely fine for me. There's no limits as far as databases and such like that. So let's create a new database. I'm going to call this company XYZ, right? It's a pretend company. I'm going to start this from scratch. If you was coming from Airtable, you can import them Airtables in, which is nice. So I've just imported that in. It's given me a table by default. What I'm going to do is just delete that, because I'm going to pull in some dummy data, and I'll put the links to this dummy data in the description, so you can also import that in as well. So I'll select the company XYZ. I'll select new table. Now I'm going to import from a CSV file, and I'm going to import customers. Now I'm going to select the CSV file here, and you can see this is kind of set up. This is a dummy data set of 10,000 customers. I'm going to click Add Table. And just like that, we have imported 10,000 customers, right? It's set everything up forwards. Now, one thing to bear in mind when you import CSV files, all these fields here, by default, are just going to be single line text. So you might not want that. You might need to change stuff. So we've got an index here, right? This looks like it's supposed to be a number. So I would go on there, edit field, and then I would change that to a number, right? And then kind of set these up based on what this field should actually be. But that's entirely up to you. This is kind of standard stuff here. So you can see 10,000 records. We can do stuff. We can do grids, so we can do like custom views. So in Airtable, it's views. In Baserow, it's grids. So we can add another grid. We'll just call this grid 1, right? And then we can add filters. Maybe we just want to see only people from Norway, right? So we can go filter, add filter from country. If country is Norway, then just show that, right? So we've got one filter there. Now it's just showing in this view everybody that's in Norway. So that's really cool. You can add more conditions onto that. That's entirely up to you. Again, have a play around. We've got a height field here, right? We can change the heights. We've got a sorting order. You can group stuff. You can share the view. You can do a bunch of stuff with this. I would just explore and play around with this, right? If you want to delete a row, I'll just come down to the bottom and delete this bottom row. You just select it, right click and delete row. This is all fairly straightforward stuff. So that's about as much as I need to explain with Baserow. We'll head over into n8n, and then I'll show you how you can connect all this up. That's also pretty straightforward. We'll do a couple of examples there, and then that'll pretty much wrap up the video. So over in n8n, we've got a blank workspace here. I'm going to put a manual trigger, and then to get Baserow connected in its most simplest form, we'll just type Baserow. And as you can see, n8n supports this natively. I'll just do a get many rows. And now, So I've already got credentials there. What I'm going to do is just delete them and set them up again. So you can see there's no credentials. We want to add the new credentials. Now for the URL, if I just come back over here, it's going to be this URL here, right? It's going to be host.docker, let's copy that, .docker.internal, and then the port number 86. So if I paste that in there. Now on Windows, like I said earlier, this is how the containers are going to talk to each other, through this address here. Not through localhost. It has to be this address. This was one of my issues initially setting these things up, was that you can access localhost on your browser, but not when you want a container to talk to another container. For the username, I'm just going to put Ben at Gmail. That's what I set up, right, on that first account. And then my password, I'm going to put the password in. Click Save. Credentials successfully created. No thanks to that. And now we're good to go. Now this should automatically pull all of our databases and such, so we can select them. So we've got operation get many. This can be a create. You can create rows, delete rows, get rows, right? If you've worked with Airtable, this will be very familiar. Database name, you can see Ben's company, and then we've got company XYZ, which is what I'm going to select. Customers, we've only got one table in there, that's just customers. Now I'm not going to do return all, because that would return 10,000 records. Actually, you know what, let's try it. If the computer explodes, then that'll be a shame. I wouldn't recommend that though. Let's try it. Oh yeah, so that took a little bit of time there. I wouldn't recommend using this get all if you've got a data set this large. All right, what you would typically do is add like a filter, so you can add filters into this. Search terms. So if I had a search term here, this is just a very broad search term. Now I know there's a couple of customers called Patty. So if I do Patty here and click test, now we've got 36 items. What that's going to do is it's going to check every field and see if the word Patty exists. And the first couple are just, you know, Patty in the first name. But here, Patty's not in the first name or the second name. But in the city, we've got Pattymouth. So that's also returned as valid. All right, so that's the way you would sort of limit them down and search them. If I just get rid of that, we've got filters. These are super powerful, super easy to use. If you've ever worked with Airtable, you have to use formulas. I don't like that. This is much easier in my brain. All right, we can search by city. So if we say city, if it's equal to Norway, and then click test. Country, sorry, cities. All right, that's my bad. Yeah, country, not city. And there we go. Now we're going to just get everyone that's living in Norway. It's going to return 51 items. Super cool. If you wanted to create a record, so if I just get rid of this filter here, I can switch this node up. In fact, I can keep that node as it is, right? So that's a get all. If we do another Baserow node, and then we'll create a row. Let's bring that node there. And there's no difference between these nodes, right? We've got create a row here, we've got get all row, right? If I change it's just the operation that changes, right? So if I select get many, now you can see get all. These are identical, right? So don't think that when you see here and I select base row, you've got to, like, if you select get row and you meant to select update row, it's fine, right? You can just change it in the actual node itself. So this one we wanted to create a row. So our credentials are already there, right? We've already set them. We don't ever need to worry about that again. The resource is row. Operation is create. Select the database, company, customers. And then this is where we define the fields. All right, so we can do a first name, we could do a last name, and we could basically get all them fields in there as we want. All right, if I just do a first name, Timmy Toes, what this will do is it'll create that record. So if I click test, it'll create that record with them two values in, and then the other values will be will just be null. And if we go into Baserow and see what that looks like, I change the height on this to small just so it's a bit more condensed. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you can see here, Timmy, toes. Nothing else has been added in these because we didn't actually define that, but that's absolutely fine. And that's kind of the basics, right? If you're importing a workflow with Baserow nodes kind of in the workflow, what you'll need to obviously do is, you know, get your credentials set up, and then you're going to have a bunch of options here. Maybe it's updating a record, or it's creating a record. They're just going to show up as numbers, and they're probably going to be red. So what you're going to have to do is come in, select the right operation, which is what it'll probably be selected. You'll have to reselect the database because your database will be different. You've got to reselect the table, and then the actual fields should at that point be refreshed so you can select the name. If it's not, and it's still showing a number, just go back to the canvas, relaunch the node, and that'll sort of refresh the connection. And then in the field, you'll be able to select the correct ones. Right? You won't need to change the actual field because that'll probably be dynamic or whatever as part of the workflow that you've imported. And that's pretty much it. Right? If you wanted to create like a little agent with this, which is super easy, it's the same sort of deal, right? We'll just create a real basic AI agent here. For the chat model, I'm just going to add an open router one. And I'm actually going to use their stealth model. This is, no one knows what this model is, but it's super quick and it works really well, and it's free. For the tools, it's going to be Baserow. And this is identical to the sort of the dedicated node, right, that we just used. The only difference being is there's a few changes because this is a tool now for the AI to use. So we've got tool description. I'm going to just set this manually, and I'm just going to put get customer, get customers tool, right? And then I'm just going to put gets customer information from Baserow. Right, the AI will know what that is. We're going to use get many. We're going to select the database here, the company. We're going to set the customers here. We only have one table, that's customers. Now, I really wouldn't use this return all because this is going to send 10,000 records to the AI, which is not good. It's really not good. So you definitely want to add some kind of search term in here. Now, for this example, I'm just going to have it search by the first name. So I'm going to put filter type. I'm going to select the first name, and then I'm going to let the AI determine the search term. I'm not even going to do anything with the system prompt. We're just going to go in, and I'm going to say, how many customers do I have with the first name Patty? It's going to go off. It's going to contact the Baserow, and then it's going to come back. Oh, so we have 17 customers. Beautiful. Let's see. Anna Gibbs. I was going to do a search for that, but you can sort of get the gist, right? Now, at this point, this is where we're sort of going beyond the scope of this video. You can build a couple of different tools, right? Maybe this one just searches by a first name. You could have one that searches by country. You could have one that searches via dates, right? When the customer was added via dates. And then you would have to give a system prompt to the LLM, and just explain what them tools are, how to use them, when to use them. The general tip with these system prompts when it comes to using tools is just keep it simple and work your way up from there. Don't go in with a huge prompt. That pretty much covers Baserow. If I've missed anything, please do let me know. I'll help obviously in the comments, but it's really, I think it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if I could have explained it any more simpler. Now, when it comes to, hopefully this is helpful if you've watched the brain rotter video for automatically creating them videos. This should get you on a track on how to link all that up now. Now you know how to sort of form the connection, certain things to look out for. Yeah, and that's about it.